Well, it's 2 o'clock in Copenhagen. This is Finn from Academy. Welcome to this webinar, which is make the most of data management in Dynamics 365. I'm just here to learn from our expert instructor, Denis. So Denis, the scene is yours.
Thank you, Finn. And today we are going to talk about the data management in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. We are going to understand the data management framework and concepts, see how the data management workspace can be used, get understanding on data entities, also take a glimpse of development of data entities, discover how to do data import and export, and do a quick overview of the Azure Data Lake. If we have time at the end, we'll do a quick overview of the exam MB300, and these data management framework topics are part of our MB300 preparation exam, the course for that exam. So what are we going to learn? Making the most of data management in D365FO. We will understand the data management framework and concepts of the data management. We'll do a quick overview of the data management workspace. We'll learn what are data entities, what they are about, how they are used in this system. Also, we will quickly overview the development of data entities, the process of data import and export into D365, and we'll answer the question, what is Azure Data Lake? All right, let us start with the data management workspace overview. In D365, you can export and import data into D365 by using data management workspace. This workspace is just as other workspaces in D365, provides us focused overview of the actions that we can do in the specific topic. In this case, that's data management. It's all about importing and exporting data. When we speak of importing and exporting data, we always think, first of all, of data entities, which are source for data export, or we are importing data into those data entities. And also another concept is data packages, which are the unit of data transfer between other systems and D365 via the data management workspace. So you just navigate into the data management workspace, and you can click on import or export button, which would create a project for you that would be able later on to import or export data. You can customize the process of importing, exporting data into third-party systems and get the unified experience for the recurring jobs for data import into D365. Data management workspace provides us access to all important tasks for data management. So you have here access to data projects execution tasks. You have here the setup for all the building bricks of data management workspace, such as data entities, parameters, automation of the data tasks, templates, and also all other actions that are normally used during the data management import or export. So when we speak of the data management concepts, first of all, we have to understand the data entities. When we say data entity, that's not equal to the data table, if you are aware of relational databases and how data is stored there. Actually, data entity is abstraction that encapsulates both the data from one or more tables and also the actions related with that table. Data entity represents a common data concept and functionality. It can be customers, it can be vendors, sales orders, purchase invoices. Data entities are intended to be easily understood and be familiar to users who understand the business concepts. So data entities are created out of the box by the D365, and you can use them in many places in D365. That can be a data management framework, that can be Office add-in, like exporting data into the Excel, or propagating data from Excel spreadsheet back into D365. Also, data entities are used for the data packages, to create data packages when we export data, or from data packages, data is imported into the data entities. So when we are using data entities, they use the business logic to create the underlying records in one or more tables that build up that particular data entity. So even with the sparse data that's coming into the D365, data entities know how to build up the full records into the appropriate tables, and D365 processes that information and displays it to us as if those records have been created via the interface of D365. What are entity examples? That can be the record in the global address book. That can be a record related with the customer or vendor. So those are the data entities. Next concept of data management is the data project. Data projects are the concepts that configure the import and export of the data entities. So when we create the data project, we define what would be the direction of the data: in, which is import, or out, which is export projects. Result of export data projects would be data packages, as the rule of thumb, or we can import data from data packages via the data projects into the D365. Data project is automatically created when you select import or export from the workspace, and data project should have at least one job. Data project would have data entities with all the mappings and default processing options. And data projects, they allow users to set up the process of data import or export, set up the processing for data entity, formats for the export of data, or where from we are importing data. It allows users to define mapping between the source file and the destination in the D365, or vice versa. So those are data projects. Next concept that we need to understand is data job. A job, it contains the execution instance of the data project. So also, as part of the data job, we might have the files which are uploaded for import, or the exported data package, so that we can later on review the data, the source data for import, or review the actual exported data, which is presented in the as the data package. The data job is created when the import or export operation is performed. Data job always creates an instance of the data project and executes it. So if you're doing just ad hoc import or export, there is typically only one data job per data project, but you can always execute data project multiple times, and that will result in multiple data jobs related with the same project. And you will be able to review later on the execution results of data jobs via the job history. So in job history, we have histories of source to staging and staging to target jobs. Once jobs has been executed, then we can review it in the job history. It will have the results for every execution run of the data job with the history of all data that was moved out of D365 or into D365. Also there we would see all errors, possible errors of processing data, time that took to execute the job. Also, we could review the data, how it appears in the staging tables. The job history is always available either from the project or from the appropriate tab in the data management workspace. And finally, we need to talk about the data package. Data package is the single compressed file that contains all the data which was exported out of D365 via the data management workspace project via the job. It is generated from data job, and it can be used multiple times for imports into other D365 instances or stored aside as a backup and to re-import data later on. If the data project is defined, that means that project has the data entity lines in it. We can execute the data project. That would result in the creation of data job, and data job would create for us the data package. And data package can be stored, for example, in Lifecycle Services asset library for later use, or for the transferring data between the golden configuration environment and test environment, for example. So that is the data management concepts that we need to understand prior to using that for data import and export. Data entities. Here we see the list of the data entities which are provided out of the box in D365 for finance operations. All data entities are categorized into parameters, reference, master, document, transactional data entities. Each of those data entities categories can be grouped and executed separately, or also they can be viewed in the categorized view, like entity category view, and we can review those data entities in the different sorting and representation of that list in D365 interface. Each of those data entities might have at least one table, but many of data entities would have the data from more than one data table in the which results into that flat list representation inside the data entity. Data entities, most of them are just the simple data entities, but also we have the complex data entities. For example, sales orders, sales invoices, various journals. Those composite data entities would have both the header records and the line records in them, right? Which makes it easier to export and import as the single data entity. All right, so that's how data entities look in the interface, the list of them. Also here we have the possibility to enable change tracking for data entities, which is very useful when we do the data export, for example, into bring your own database. We don't want to export all the data every time, right? We would like to export just that data that has been changed in D365, modified records or new records or deleted records, right? So that change tracking button allows us to set the rules for the tracking of changes for the particular data entity, and related with that, export just the changes via the data projects of our data management framework. When we do development for data entities, that is not an administrative effort, that is rather the development effort by the coding in the Visual Studio, or mostly in Visual Studio. The creation of the data entity for some new table that you might introduce into D365 as part of your implementation project, you need to create the data entity that would encapsulate both the data and the relevant business logic. And that is done in Visual Studio. The data entity is created with all the relevant code, methods, classes that would do actual workhorse for the creation of the record in the all underlying tables for the data entity, or extract the all required data from the hierarchy of tables, and provide that data entity record that we can use for the exchange between D365 and other systems, for example, used for reporting or business intelligence. Data entity, once it's created, and it can be exposed either via the OData, which is used by web services, but also OData is used via the Office add-in, so that Excel export actually uses OData protocol to get the data entity out of D365 into the Excel. Data entities we use for import and export of data into D365. Also, data entities can be used for the integrations. That's how data management project looks like. In the data management framework, we create the import project, and we add all relevant data entities into the project. Once everything is set up, we can import, do the ad hoc import right away at the same moment, or we can schedule the recurring data job, in this case for import of all those data entities from appropriate source. Later on, we can review the job history, and also we can download just the definition of the project itself. Here, this download is not related with the data package, which would, in this case, being the source for the import, but rather that download would result in the definition of this project with all the data entities and fields which are part of those data entities. Next topic that I'd like to cover is the data entity templates. When we do imports or exports of large amounts of data prior to going live, or when preparing another environment for the user acceptance testing, it's a good idea to use the data entity templates. As those data entity templates, they are provided out of, at least default templates are provided out of the box by Microsoft. There is a button load default templates, which will give us the list of the predefined by Microsoft data entity templates. Each of those data entity templates would have the relevant data entities, list of data entities with the appropriate execution level, as it is set in D365 Data Management Framework. The execution of the data projects is done according to the execution order of the data entities in the project. And we have three level set of the execution order for each of the data entities, and that can be set on both project level, but also we can set that in the data entity template, right? And that will ensure that every data entity would be imported, for example, at the appropriate time, so that, to give an example, the customers would not be imported prior to customer groups, right? So that execution order is set by execution unit, level in the execution unit, and the sequence number, right? And out of the box, by those default templates, we get that execution order, and the data would be exported or imported in the right order. And also there we would have all the relevant data entities with the appropriate field of D365. So out of the box, we get the setup for the system data entities, general ledger, shared general ledger related, bank accounts, receivable accounts, payable. Also, we get the composite data entity templates that would have more than just one module related data of D365. For example, that can be finance data entity template or human resources related data entity template. And as we have those data entity templates, we can always run the creation of the data project, for example, export of the data based on the data entity template, which is very handy and speeds up the maintenance of the data management framework. So when we import or export data by using the data management framework, what should we do? First of all, we create an import or export job. After the creation of that import or export job is done, actually, it's not a job, the project. Then we should validate the source data, target data, mappings, all the settings related with the data entities as part of that data project. Then we should set the security for importing and exporting of that data entities via the job of the data project. That security can be related with the appropriate user or the security role of the user that has the access to the appropriate data management project and can execute the data management. Also, we can set other settings related with the security, not much of them, but just enough to be sure that the right people can execute the right import or export jobs. And after we do the actual import-export, we should review the results of the importing, exporting of data, and don't forget after that to clean up the staging tables. As in most of the, especially imports from legacy system, definitely staging tables are involved, and we need to map the appropriate fields, probably do transformations for them, set up the default values, and all of that is done in the staging tables. And after running more than once of our import data management project, the data that's stored in staging tables has the tendency to pile up in a huge heap, and it's a good idea to clean it up once in a while. For that purpose, we have the specific button tile in the data management framework. All right, so those are the steps which are required for the data import and export. And now let's answer that question that probably many of you have. What is actually the Azure Data Lake? When we speak of Azure Data Lake, we have in mind that that is, first of all, a cloud storage technology. Also, when we speak of that data lake as the cloud storage technology, we are referring to the specific cloud storage technology, which is Azure Data Lake Storage Generation 2. It is less expensive than the storing of data in the databases or relational database cloud storage. And data lakes, they provide that storage for less, and but also it provides us a lot of tools to access that data and use the same data in those scenarios where you would use different tools and integrations with the D365FO finance and operations. So when we are speaking of big data usage scenarios in the D365FO finance and operations, we speak of artificial intelligence and analytics scenarios. So that might be the analytical workspaces, right, which are basically the workspaces that have the embedded Power BI reports and that are nice to look at, that provide you representation of the data that you can drill into. Those workspaces give you possibility to access the data and drill through it and have the nice representation of it. Another usage for the large data import-export scenarios, currently export scenarios, is the bring your own database, right? That is the service that allows customers to extract data from the finance operations and put that data into their own warehouses. Also, bring your own database is recommended to be used for combining the data from D365 finance operations with data from other systems. So the data lake, it actually combines those two scenarios, analytical workspaces or entity stores, and bring your own database. So as the data lake is included into the customer subscription, you can bring your own data lake and integrate it with finance and operation applications, so that they would use your data lake to store entity store data, right? And operate the analytical workspaces. And those analytical workspaces will continue work as they used to do with the Power BI. Also, the entity store is staged in your data lake and provides a set of simplified data structures to make reporting easier. So you can get the direct access to the data that is most relevant to users, and users can create their own reports based on that data in the data lake, and any tools, any analytical tools can be used. So you don't need to do the exporting data by using the bring your own database anymore, as you can select from D365 which data you would like to be staged into the data lake. And there is a data feed service, which is part of finance and operation services, that will keep the data fresh in your data lake. So that is the quick overview. What is the Azure Data Lake cloud storage technology? We use our data lake to store the data. We think still data entities. It can be used for the source for analytical workspaces, for the reports, or for the data integrations with the third-party applications. Also, what's interesting about the data lake, right, as it combines that bring your own database with the entity store. Also, data lake is created in compliance with the common data model folder standard, so that the data is structured in the folders. You can access it through the folder structure according to the common data model. Also, probably you've heard of common data model as part of the Microsoft Dataverse, as part of the Microsoft Power Platform, right? So all of that is interconnected, and the data, because it is stored according with the common data model folder standards, it can be passed further on into the Power Platform or other third-party applications via various data connectors, which are provided out of the box, more than 200 of them already. All right, so that's a quick overview of the Azure Data Lake that I wanted to do today, and a quick overview of the data management framework. And we still have a little bit of time, I believe 2 minutes. Just a quick overview how you can prepare for the MB300 exam. Of course, you need to study. You need to have some hands-on practice, and it's a good idea to take practice tests. Where can you learn more? First of all, on Microsoft Docs, Microsoft Learn System provides really good documentation, which you can use to make yourself comfortable with all those topics required for the MB300 exam. Or also you can use our live online courses at Academy and learn it in structural approach with our help. Courseware, Academy provides skill pipe documentation for the preparation for the exam that covers all the topics required for the exam. Here you can see the table of contents out of the skill pipe. You need to practice. For practice, you have virtual machines. We are using virtual machine, which is created specifically for MB300 exam, that has all the data required, all the setups is in place, and also it has all the exercises, a lot of exercises, step-by-step instructions, so that even if you are not yet acquainted with the specific topic required to the exam, you would have your guided by instructor and the exercise step-by-step description to do the labs and prepare yourself for the exam. Practice test, Academy provides at no extra cost the practice text for MB300 at Measure Up, and you can use it for, I believe, 90 days, as many times as you need. Changes to Microsoft certification expiration policy. Starting from June 2021, exams that you are Microsoft exams that you are taking will have the expiry policy, so that after you took the exam, 1 year later, that exam will expire and you will need to renew your certification. Basically, that's in 2 words, the changes in the Microsoft certifications. If you have any question and answers, any questions, I would be really happy to provide you some answers related with these webinar topics.
Denis, that was a lot of good stuff. One thing I was curious about was if you could use the data management framework for like copying configurations, you know, when you do implementation rollout across the world. Is this a tool where you could easily do the copying configurations?
Yes, that is your primary tool for tasks like that. You would use data management framework to create relevant data packages, export them, and via lifecycle services distribute and import them either manually or in the automated way into a new environment. Will it be the user acceptance tests or the fresh environment sandbox, which is going to be the go live, the live environment?
Okay, sounds good. We don't have any further questions in the chat, and I guess if I've got more questions, I could just join your class next week, couldn't I? And I can hear you got a lot of things to tell about this tool and all the other ones.
Yes, next week we'll have this MB300 course. It would be a 4 half-days course, and everyone is welcome to learn about the core features of the MB300 under my guidance next week.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Finn, I can hear you, but I believe that we're coming to the end of this webinar.
We are. There's a question just popping up right now, but I think just popping in the last few slides with the links on them, and then we'll have to say that was it for today. And I'll just see the other questions popping in here and see if I can take care of that. Thank you much for your time, Denis. That was a lot of good stuff. I was speechless throughout the webinar. I know that because there's so many good things. I had studied that before doing the exam a couple of years ago. So a lot of good things in here. Thank you much for your time, Denis, and thank you much you guys for attending this webinar. We've got other webinars coming up at xacademy.com. You can see the next couple of ones, which will be about the release waves for supply chain management and for finance. Those two, I think, both in June. Thank you much for your time out of Copenhagen. This was Finn, and Denis, whereabout are you?
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, bye-bye.